There you go.
Okay, it's recording now. We can start.
Okay, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Nina David. I am the incoming ENEP director. I officially start in January, but I'm happy to be here and introduce JB. I want to thank the Dean Erstegata, for being here and for all of your support for the ENEP programs across the board. Salim, thank you for thinking of this idea. Joe Trainer, thank you for supporting and encouraging this idea. And JB, of course, you need no introduction, founding the program, being part of all of those IPCC contributions and the shared Nobel Peace Prize, you need no introduction. But thank you so much for doing all of the work behind the scenes, putting this group of wonderful and diverse and distinguished panelists, our alums together, and for moderating today's session. So thank you to you all for being here. The idea that we have today, potentially in this virtual environment, past, present, and future students is kind of amazing. What an incredible opportunity, right, for all of us to be here in the same space. To our Biden School faculty and students who are here as well, welcome. And I pass it on to JB's very able hands.
Thank you, Nina, very much. So I'm going to try and get our colleagues, the alumni, to introduce themselves. I'm just going to introduce one by one and let them sort of fill in the blanks, and then we can. I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask, just to give you a flavor of what these folks have been up to and what might be useful to you in thinking about ENEP, and then we're hoping that we can get our student colleagues to be asking questions. So that's sort of the stepwise progression. So yeah, I'm John Byrne, JB, and this was one of the easiest panels to put together. I think I spent all of maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes making phone calls, and that was it. And everybody had agreed. So it was amazing that we could find this same time and so on for this crew. This is not, I was just assuming I was going to have a real rough time getting this crew together. But anyway, it worked out very, very well. And so sort of the deans of the PhD in the MEEP program are Bo, Shen, and Johanna Partin. So I was going to start with Bo, just asking him to give a little bit of background. Bo is at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, finished his PhD here a few years ago. And Bo can talk a little bit about I thought, Bo, maybe a little bit of the research that you did while you were here, and then maybe a little bit about what you've been doing since you left. I think more so, you had a very interesting career, and so I just thought maybe you could say hello to folks and give them a little flavor of what Bo's been up to.
Great. Okay, so you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share my thoughts and some experience. And I have worked in completely different type of organization in the last maybe 30 years, 25 years, 30 years, including a state government, nonprofit, environmental organizations, academic, applied research. So I'm happy to share what I have achieved at the UD, how my experience at UD helped me in my later work, and how did my work in one place led to my next job. So I hope that will be helpful to you. And I was born in Beijing, China. And I've been living in the US for the last 32 years, 20 years in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and 12 years in California. So I guess my graduate study I came to the US 1990 to pursue my graduate study. My graduate study start from RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. My field of study there is science and technology studies. focusing on the relationship between technology and society. Soon after I entered RPI's master program, I participate in a research project with my advisor to study the contribution and impact of energy and the environmental technology on society. With my advisor, I went to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab about 30 years ago, where we visit different research facilities and interview scientists there to understand how the technology, particularly the energy technology, have impact on the society, and how you evaluate those assess those impact. There, I kind of impressed with by the Berkeley Lab mission that is bring science to the world, and it is an interdisciplinary research approach that impressed me deeply and made me hope that one day I could work there in the future. And the work at RPI led me to get interested in my doctoral program, because the RPI, I'm looking forward to a PhD program that allow me to dig deeper into the energy environmental field. And at that time, I found the UD Energy Environmental Policy Program because I need to gain interdisciplinary experience and understand how technology, policy, and society interact in energy and environment. So this is why I went to UD to study at your program. And that 28 years ago, 1992. And my 6 years study at UD gave me not only the benefit for my own academic exploration, but also the opportunity to engage in scientific research that have so broader social impact, which I will want to talk with you. At UD, JB's technology and society class had a profound impact on me, especially when you're reading the small is better, beautiful, those kind of work that promote a small appropriate technology policy as a better alternative to bigger is better. So I start put my attention to China because the country has focused heavily on the centralized energy system based on fossil energy, which bring environmental degradation and consume a large amount of energy. The class at UD made me see that the distributed system based on renewable energy resource may be a better future. So JB is very supportive of this idea and incorporate this idea into the project. He collaborate with INRAL, the National Renewable Energy Lab. Throughout this, so that basically that's kind of laid the foundation for my 6 years at UD doing my PhD work. So I collaborate with JB, Yang Du, and INRAL's Bill Wallace, not only to make the very proud academic achievement, but also to realize this idea in China, Inner Mongolia, to help solve the real world problem at the same time. So Inner Mongolia, is a region in China that has a vast land and sparse population. But the renewable resources are the most abundant in China. For this reason, a renewable energy-based distributed energy system could be a viable alternative to bring a centralized power system centralized power system through a long transmission line. And solar and wind resource are complementary daily and seasonal. Based on this, we proposed idea of creating we call the PV wind hybrid off-grid system for herdsman family, rural household for meeting their needs for education, healthcare, economic activity, and daily life. So we have developed an assessment tool for designing this hybrid system and evaluating the technical and economic performance of different system configurations. We also identified a range of barriers to the wide adoption such a hybrid system in Mongolia, and also recommend a policy solution that should be taken to remove these barriers. So it was because our research that made INRAIL to decide to invest US dollar, $500,000 that's in 1990s in team up with China, in collaborate with China to promote this solar wind hybrid system in Mongolia. So
Hey, Bo,
yes.
But
Yeah.
we should, you're going in too much detail at this point. I got to let
Oh.
somebody else introduce themselves. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
maybe
Okay.
you could give the wrap up on the Inner Mongolia case, and maybe go to the film to close, and then you can come back.
Sure.
you know.
Sure. No problem. My bad. I didn't realize that. Okay. So basically, I benefit a lot from this project. So in 2010. We went back in Mongolia with JB and a filmmaker who make a documentary on this work, and there we are so happy to see things change so much, and the hybrid system is everywhere, and uniquely in Mongolia create an ecosystem for support this idea. Basically, we visit the technology center where they supply the equipment, they do the maintenance, they train the users. The whole ecosystem has been created. So we have been so proud with those kind of achievement. And for me, I learned a method of conducting technical economic analysis, and we publish several papers, and today it's being still cited. And so that's kind of a lot of achievement from that work. So I will stop here.
Okay, thank you, Bo. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn you loose just yet. We're going to turn you loose, but not just yet. I wanted you to first let everybody have a chance just to say hello to students and colleagues that now underwrite the ENEP experience. So let me turn to Johanna, who has also had a very interesting professional pathway since finishing her master's degree at UD. So, Johanna, can you give us a little overview? That's not easy in your case in particular, but anyway, can you give us a little overview of what you've been up to, what you did when you were a student, and now what you've been doing?
Sure, and I was about to go the Bo route, so let me just check in on how many minutes. So Bo, I feel your pain. I was going to do what you were going to do. So 3 minutes, 3 minutes, JB?
Yeah, 5-10 minutes, to get started, and then we're going to come back and let you talk more about what you think of the issues of the field and what you would advise new students like that. But first, let them have an idea of who is Johanna Partin. So
yeah, well. We're all still trying to figure that out, aren't we? But thanks so much for the invitation. Great to see you, JB, and Bo. We overlapped a little bit while we were both there. So thanks so much for the invitation. My name's Johanna Partin. I'm based in San Francisco, California. And let's see, I graduated with my master's from UD in 2000. First, maybe what really drew me, I think, to the program was how international it was, and the fact that most of the students, both master's and PhD at the time, were not from the US, were not native to the US or even North America. And that's really, I knew I wanted to do international work, so that's really what drew me to the program. It also helped that I got some funding to go, and I knew it was a very applied program, and I was not really very interested in an academic program. I was very interested in here's the work that I want to do, and I need the tools to go out there and do that. And so that's what really drew me. I had done some work abroad in Bangladesh with the Grameen Bank This is back before Muhammad Yunus had won the Nobel Peace Prize. And I was very interested in issues of gender and energy, and also very interested in issues of microfinance and how renewable energy in particular could be used as a tool for economic development. And so I had spent some time in working with Grameen Bank to try to figure that out. And they were developing a solar program. And if you're familiar with the microfinance system, you kind of graduate up the ladder. You get a very small loan, and then you graduate up the ladder. And then the last loan for Grameen that you could get at the time was for a solar panel, and that could be used to power a cell phone battery or a tuk-tuk or or whatever. And at the time, renewable energy was not affordable, and they dropped the program. It just was not a tool for poverty alleviation. And so much has changed since then. And I'm so pleased that that's the case. So I graduated with my master's. I'd say the two most, I was also very influenced by the technology and society class. And what I love is that coming out of that class, I was taught that technology will not solve our problems. It's a tool. And that is still very much the case today, as we all know, from, how are we going to deal with climate change? Technology is not our biggest challenge. And so that's what really drew me to that work. I wrote a paper with some colleagues when I was there on a new novel idea that we called community choice aggregation. And now there's CCAs all over the world, which is great. And different versions of that. And the Delaware version of that is even a greater improvement. But when I graduated, I really wanted to work on this issue of gender and energy. And so I moved over to an organization called Winrock International, which was doing a lot of work to try and rethink USAID and World Bank funded programs, which were largely being designed to benefit men in communities. And so we looked at, well, how could we redesign those so that they could benefit women? And then of course, as we know, when you tend to benefit women, you tend to benefit children, and it's a much faster way to bring people out of poverty. So I was very fortunate to be able to go to do that. I worked in, I think, 15 different countries when I was with Winrock, doing microfinance programs and designing programs that were designed to benefit women and children. And frankly, I got a little bit disillusioned with international development out of that work. And I changed from there and went hyper local. I went to work for the city of San Francisco government and was managing the city's renewable energy program, and did that for a number of years. Really got the city bug, really got the local government bug. And of course was then was appointed by then Mayor Gavin Newsom as the senior policy advisor on climate and sustainability, and oversaw the city's energy and transportation and greening programs for a number of years, and was responsible for passing, not solely, but had the pleasure of passing San Francisco CCA legislation, which was a fun full circle moment for me. Stayed with the city until with the new mayor, Ed Lee, before he passed away tragically. And then went to work for a city organization called C40, Cities Climate Leadership Group, which has really been responsible for putting cities on the map in the climate negotiations. And while I was there, had the privilege of working with about 50 or 60 cities around the world. And we're really finding that the leading cities, the cities that we call the climate vanguards, the Copenhagens, the New Yorks, the Londons, the Yokohamas, the Rios of the world, they were talking about carbon neutrality, and nobody knew what that was, and nobody had any idea how to achieve it. And there was no organization that was really focused on supporting cities to implement the programs that it took to get to carbon neutrality. So I left there and founded an organization called the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance, CNCA, and worked for them for a number of years. And now carbon neutrality is something that people talk about, which is very exciting. And COP is happening, and it's not going to go far enough. And, the same story of local government action is really where the leadership is. And we need to use that and harness that to bubble up into the international and national ambition. So I did leave CNCA a couple of months ago, and am now working with an organization that is really focused on the issue that I think is going to be the biggest issue in achieving our climate goals, which is getting off of gas. We don't say natural gas, we say fossil gas. And so I now work for an organization called the Building Decarbonization Coalition, which is really focused on taking down the gas industry and decarbonizing buildings and building the market for electrification and looking at the indoor air impacts of cooking with a combustion fuel machine in your kitchen and what that looks like. And for me, it's very interesting to take that full circle, because when I was at Winrock, I was working on women and cook stove issues. And guess what I'm doing now? I'm working on women and cook stove issues. So I am actually going to put a little bit of a plug in the chat. We are hiring. So please go to our website. If you're looking for jobs, we're looking for good people. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, JB.
Wow. Yeah, that was a real whiz through your life, but that's really nice. And I like the way you rounded it back to what you were doing with your master's work and then at Winrock, your beginning of your career. So that's really, really impressive. Well done, Johanna. So why don't we take a couple of moments with Joe? I'm trying to sort of balance. We got PhD, then we got, so I thought I'd see Joe, if you could, again, just a few minutes to begin. Don't do everything, because as with each one of you, you have so much going on that it can be, it's hard to tell you that. But anyway, I think it'd be good, Joe, to give them a sense of what you're up to, both where you are now, where you, where you did your master's work, how you came to Delaware, that kind of thing. That would really help. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, JB, and thanks for that warm introduction, and for all the work that you do in nurturing creativity, and advancing knowledge, through teaching, research, as well as thought leadership. It has always been wonderful working with you since I came to UD. And friends and colleagues, it is my pleasure to join you this evening. I wish I could be there in person in the beautiful Newark campus. UD holds a very special place in my heart. First, it is a place that I actually came of age academically, thanks to the collegial tutelage of wonderful professors like JB, the late Professor Yang-Du Wang. May his soul continue to rest in peace. Professors like Dr. Bill Latham, as well as many others that I interacted with while I was there. And second, UD is also very special to me, because it was while at UD that I met my wife, who is also a blue hen. And so that makes us double downs. So for that reasons, UD will always be very special to me. So currently I'm a senior power and utilities consultant for innovation. I work with SAS Institute, where I advise US energy companies on how to navigate the pressures of decarbonization, digital transformation, and decentralization in the electricity markets. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with SAS, SAS is a 45-year-old corporation that was built on innovation. And we are based in Cary in North Carolina. We are accelerating innovation, which is actually what we do in terms of data. So we are accelerating innovation through use of technology in different sectors. We work in the ag tech sector, in banking, in education, government, healthcare. We also work in insurance, life sciences, as well as manufacturing, and most importantly, in the energy and utilities sector. And our drive here is basically solving business problems of our customers through data, generating insights, which can be used to improve decisions. Our analytics solutions is anchored on transforming data into intelligence, inspiring customers around the world to make bold and new discoveries that drive progress, and including on issues such as climate change, sustainability, as well as many other areas that we have a very strong footprint in. And my role at SAS focuses on the hallmark of the fourth industrial revolution, Industrial 4.0. And this is based on improving the fusion of breakthrough technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, the Internet of Things, as well as big data, to evaluate low carbon electricity systems and generate insights which utilities, regulators, as well as city managers can use to improve on planning, policy design, improve on the operations, improve on pricing of carbon transition risk of electric power systems. And besides us, I also hold appointment as a non-resident fellow at the Penn Institute of the Colorado School of Mines, as well as a research fellowship at the Institute for Sustainable Energy Policy at the Johns Hopkins University, and as well as with the Foundation for Renewable Energy and Environment through JB that I've worked with for many years. And I completed my PhD focusing on energy and environmental policy in 2017. So I'm still fairly recent in terms of when I graduated. And prior to that, I earned 2 master's degrees focusing on energy systems engineering, computing systems, as well as energy economics from Columbia University. I earned an MPA from Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, as well as from University of Greenwich in UK that I spent many years prior to moving to New York. And while at New York, I also worked with the UN, United Nations Development Program, UNDP. I worked on a number of projects focusing on Southeast Asia in terms of trying to help governments, in terms of when they're formulating their policies, how they can formulate those policies in a way that doesn't, encourage carbon locking, but creates room for them to innovate in future in terms of how they anchor their sectors, as well as focusing on asset-intensive sectors, energy, transportation, as well as manufacturing. JB, I'll leave it there so that we can come in later for further discussion. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. That's kind, although it was still a whirlwind through an awful lot of change in your life to get to where you are now, and very grateful for that. So this, for colleagues that are new in the field, you're getting, as you can see from Johanna, you're getting a perspective that includes a lot of NGO work and a lot of international work. From Bo, you're getting laboratory and international work, and from Joe, you're getting work that both includes that sort of international efforts that he did earlier on, and then currently working through the business sector to try and get the business sector aligned with decarbonization, which I think both Bo and Johanna would love if the business sector would get on board and do this. So I think Joe's a really helpful person to give you an idea of where those changes are going. I thought I would ask actually our newest alum, who also is working in the business sector of sorts, but when you hear what she's doing, I think she's really aligned very closely with what Johanna and everybody else is doing. So Carice, can you kind of, you finished the master's program when, and what were you doing when you did that? Oh, incidentally, someone just, a PhD student in civil engineering at UD is going to be in touch with you. He read the report on community solar, and he wants to talk with you. Yeah, so.
Good. Well, thank you so much, JB, for setting this up and inviting me. This is amazing. I did not expect to see so many great professors and classmates, my old TA, Joe that I worked with. So, it's really, really nice to be here and see everyone and see how everyone is progressing and doing so well. Well, yes, so basically my start with this program I worked in the energy industry for my country, Trinidad and Tobago. It's in the Caribbean. It's a very heavily oil and gas-based economy. So naturally, I worked in that industry, that energy sector, as a petroleum geologist. But I always had a passion for sustainability and cleaner energy and stuff. And, unfortunately, the position I was in, I was not able to make that type of change. So much like Johanna mentioned, she knew what needed to be done, but needed the tools to equip equip her to get her to where she wanted to be career-wise. That is exactly how I ended up here. So, you know, I did my research. I knew I wanted to be in the cleaner energy sector. I did my research and I saw that, you know, a lot of this change comes from policy, and that is what we need to take things where we need it to be in terms of like that cleaner energy. So got in touch with UD. I did my undergraduate degree at UD, got in touch, and then, you know, they put me on to the Energy and Environmental Policy Department. And, you know, it has been a really amazing experience. Research came into play, and that helped with funding to help me get the tools that I needed to work in the sector that I was passionate about. I worked with Dr. Jerry Kaufman over at the Water Institute. You know, that was a really great learning experience, great mentor. And I would say I then met JB. I took one of his classes, and, you know, we learned a lot about environmental justice and other aspects of clean energy and sustainability that, you know, I realized at that point I was like passionate about as well. And I started working for JB, you know, within my second year of my master's program. And with JB, we got involved in community solar and helping to bring about like energy independence for people, you know, getting people off of that like reliance on the centralized grid and like fossil fuel energy. So we did a lot of good work with that, a lot of research, and, you know, ultimately all that research done in school and all the classes that I took led me to my current position. So I graduated last year during the pandemic. I think that was, 2020, we had a virtual graduation. And I started working for Consolidated Edison, so just Con Ed in New York City. It's like a major distributor of energy in New York City and Westchester. And I am actually on the team, so I know it is a utility, but I am on the team that is focused on getting people off of gas. So I am part of the non-pipeline solutions team. And basically, again, much like Johanna, what she spoke about, we are trying to fully electrify people and get them completely off of gas, like, you know, cut the segments, everything, there's no going back to it. So we are looking at fully electrifying people. And, you know, of course, with the passion that I developed for like environmental justice and energy justice and stuff like that, like we are paying particular attention to low and moderate income groups like the LMI groups and stuff, and people who traditionally might be left behind in this type of progression. And all of this is being pushed, not just by some people's passion, but it's also being pushed by New York City policy goals. So there's the CLCPA, which basically is pushing for a New York City emissions reduction, carbon emissions reduction of, I want to say 85% by 2050. So, you know, it's very aggressive goals that we have. And that's what's really motivating my department and the company and a lot of other places to try to like push these goals and achieve these goals. So that is what I'm doing. I am still fresh on the scene. You know, it's just actually next week, it will be my 1 year work anniversary. So you know, I'm definitely open if anyone wanted to like chat about like the early stages of this career progression. And, you know, hopefully one day I can return back home to my country of Trinidad and Tobago and bring these tools and these experiences that I'm like learning here and accumulating right now to my country and help them get off of this like strong dependence on oil and gas, you know, like that's the end goal here, and hopefully I will be able to achieve that.
Yeah. Another person with modest goals. We're so happy to hear, Carice, that you're working on transforming everything from New York to the Caribbean, but that's really fantastic. And I have to say, working with Carice and with everyone that you've heard from so far, it is it's like abundant energy people. I mean, they are always driven, and I'm not trying to do energy like energy. I'm trying to do energetic people and unbelievably open to new ideas and invention and things. So it's really been just wonderful to see both them in the classroom, but most importantly, to see them professionally moving forward the way they are. Well, I want to just give our, I'm circling back, Kathleen. I was worried that if I did elders, that that would also be all West Coast. I didn't mean it to be that way, but Kathleen is, I thought we should have somebody from academic life, and she is not your normal academic, as I'm sure you'll hear, but anyway, she's at a very, very interesting program at Evergreen State in the state of Washington, a really interesting progressive program, master's program. And I received an email from her today with a very good news that a paper that she and a colleague had been working on for environmental studies and science has just been published on, of course, the topic of environmental education and how you would do it. And so Kathleen, congratulations on the paper, and I'm really glad to have you here with us. Can you just give us a little bit about how someone who studied chemical engineering at the same time that she got a degree in French, then went to the Wharton School and is doing these extraordinary things now in our field? Just talk a little bit about the creative mind that takes you through all of that and gets you to an academic position. And I hope take just a minute maybe on Evergreen State's unique approach to master's study, particularly the narrative style for communication with students and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. I see a couple of familiar faces, but most of you are new to me. And I wish we could all be in person, but for the past 2 years now, almost, we've been constrained to little boxes on a screen. So this is great. I get to see more of you, and from, all over the country. Maybe some of you are zooming in from different places in the world. That's been great too. Like JB said, I started my academic journey with 2 degrees, one in French and one in chemical engineering. And then I veered off into business, and then I came back and got a degree in environmental studies before I headed to University of Delaware. And people always ask me, like, what was going on here? And I tell them, well, it makes perfect sense, because my focus was nuclear energy. And then they really start scratching their heads. But, I understand the technology. I understand the business case. So if somebody wants to throw the economics or the business case at me, I get it. The country in the world where they supply the greatest percentage of their energy by nuclear power is France. And they are also exporting their technology. So that makes sense. And that, nowadays people are touting nuclear as a carbon-free energy solution. And I could talk to you about that for about 5 hours, which I don't think we have. So, it all makes sense when you come together and you look at nuclear as an energy resource. So I came to the University of Delaware, and one of the things I really loved about the program was the variety of courses that counted towards your degree. At a lot of schools, their energy programs were housed like in the engineering college, and all you took were engineering courses, or they were in a business school and all you took were business courses. I took one look at the curriculum, and my husband did too. And we were like, oh, I want to take that. You want to take that. You're going to take that. You're going to take that. And it was just such a rich curriculum. It was just so enticing that I knew I had to go to the University of Delaware. And it's sort of like my entire background. I kind of have this feeling that education is there to give us this broad selection of courses. It enhances our knowledge of the world, especially today. as we're finding out, everything is linked to everything else. It's really hard to put ourselves in little silos and say, I just want to study this because nothing else matters. As we learned from the meetings either in Paris or now in Glasgow, everything's connected. And programs like the one at the University of Delaware, whether you're in the master's program, the undergraduate program, PhD program, help you understand that everything is connected. And you can study all of these things together and put them together in your research or in your papers. And you have great faculty that help you do that. Another thing that I always encourage people to do is take advantage of internships, or in our case, we had a winter, intercession program that went to India. And I was really lucky to get to go with that. JB was our faculty sponsor. We had two great people from India, one of our fellow PhD students and another person on the ground in India, who arranged all of the arrangements on the India side for us. And we spent 2 weeks on the ground there. We had meetings with a whole bevy of NGOs that were working outside of Mumbai, doing a wide variety of things for people in the area. I got to see, new train stations with specific ramps that would help connect bus systems to the trains. I went out and saw tree planting to try to regenerate the forest that had been stripped bare because people needed the firewood. I also met a gentleman who was doing a documentary on nuclear power, and that turned into like the gold nugget for me. I connected with him, and he turned it into a great resource for my PhD because he also was from the very region in India where they were proposing to build a 6-reactor nuclear power plant. So I traveled back to India, it was like a year and a half or 2 years later, to interview the farmers and the small business owners, the fishermen and the small shop owners that were going to be impacted by the construction of this giant nuclear power station. He was able to translate for me, and I was able to sit on the fishing pier in the little villages with these people. I was able to get into their homes and listen to their stories. And that was a phenomenal experience to really understand how the construction of this giant power plant, which would not bring electricity to these farmers and fishermen, would really affect them. It would affect their ability to get out to fish. It would destroy the ecosystem outside of the fishing villages because of the hot water that would be coming out of those nuclear power plants. They would lose their jobs. They were losing their land. It was destroying families because of the way the payments were flowing to the person who was on the deed for the land rather than the people who were working the land. So I got a real taste for some of the injustices that were associated with these big energy construction projects. Yeah. So the kind of things that we did, we also visited some of the large dam construction in India. And I remember sitting down on the front stoop of our hotel. I think we were using JB's computer, typing up a report that we could hand off to the people that we had been touring with so that they could have this would you say, academic style report about the impact of the dams on these villages, because the dams were going to flood the very villages we were staying in. Just that, and the entire houses were going to go underwater. And it seemed like the government was not taking that into account. There were land for land promises that were going ignored, money payments that were not being made, and that was going on for years and decades. So I always tell people to take advantage of the kind of programs that we had in India, or internships, because you never know what kind of ideas it's going to spark in you, what kind of things that you can learn from the people that you meet. So as JB indicated, before I graduated, I took a job at the Evergreen State College teaching in the Masters of Environmental Studies program. We have a very interdisciplinary program, which is unlike most in the country. We teach in teams. So, and it's not like one person teaches on Monday and somebody else teaches on Tuesday. There's actually several faculty standing, well, we used to stand in front of the class, now we're all on Zoom, but we have several faculty teaching each of the core courses. So there might be a faculty person who specialized in economics, or somebody who is a biogeochemist alongside a historian. And we get together and we decide on the readings for the course and the progression of the course. We have the key objectives of the course, the kind of projects we want the students to be able to accomplish. And usually we have an overarching theme that we have for each of the core courses. And then it's up to this faculty team to work together to help the students through. The past few years, climate change has been a big theme, especially in our ecological and social sustainability core course. And that's usually the second quarter of the first year. JB also mentioned that we don't have grades, which some people balk at, but I found that's really great, especially when you're talking about an environmental studies program. Instead, we faculty write about a page to a page and a half narrative about each student at the end of each quarter, and that becomes part of the academic record. It's forces the faculty to sit down and say, okay, what do I know about each of these students? Where did that individual start at the beginning of the quarter, and where did they end up? So it's not just one little letter grade that sums up what you did. It allows me as a faculty to say, okay, I know that maybe you didn't have science when you came to our program. Maybe you were an English major, and I can incorporate that and say, you know what, you started here and you came to here, and that was fantastic. So that can set you apart from a science student who did nothing, who would have otherwise gotten an A. So I think it's a really great way to evaluate students in these kind of interdisciplinary programs. So anyway, I'll stop there, JB.
Yeah, and very close relation between faculty and students as a result.
Yeah.
It's narrative, you're talking with each other all the time.
Yep.
So, okay, so that to colleagues in the programs and anybody who might have come that's thinking of applying, these are, I didn't select these folks to really give you, you know, a fairly specific definition of what the field is. The field intentionally is interdisciplinary. You can see the wide variety of work that these folks are doing. And you can see that that work is not simply classroom work, it's research, it's internships, it's getting involved actively with organizations. And so I think these folks are all pioneers in their own way, but in my view, the ENEP program has always been pioneers. That's every one of the folks that are in it have been pioneers. So that's been my experience. And maybe I'll, rather than going back around to folks, I think we've talked, I have to say, I think my colleagues were eager to join this alumni panel, so eager that they have really put their enthusiasm out, and you've heard a lot now. But I thought maybe we could take a pause here for a moment, and folks who want to ask questions, either to the alumni individually or to the alumni severally, however you want to do it. They're nice people. They don't snap at you. They're very kind people, and but you might want to ask about the kind of things you're looking for in a program, and how they might offer to you ideas on how you might get what you want, okay, from the program. So let me throw the floor open and see if I can get anyone, always getting the first question is toughest, but see if we can get anyone who would be willing to do that.
And feel free to write them in the chat also, but it's
Yeah.
always good to
Yeah.
put them in plenary.
Yeah, yeah. And so I see one. Is Israel here? Can we get, it's rather to have your voice rather than.
Yeah, you're welcome to
saying
ask.
you or me.
Funding for international students is the question
Yeah.
around. I guess Joe, maybe as an associate dean, you may want to answer that, Joe Trainer.
Sure. So there's a number of funding mechanisms that are applied. It depends. It's different depending on the master's program versus the PhD programs, but there are assistantships that can be had. They're competitive across the board. So those and there's kind of three different versions. Some are for teaching, some are for programmatic support. So those are GAs. And then some are research assistantships with professors who are actually running projects. So those three different types of support are available. There's no kind of restrictions on any of those particular types of support for international students. And then in addition to that, we have some competitive university level awards. So folks that are particularly strong academically or have strong histories, we can nominate folks for those types of awards as well. And then on the tuition side, so at the doctoral level, we do provide tuition remissions for doctoral students. And on the master's side, students are for tuition support. There is a kind of a secondary review process where people review against a set of criteria, and we make the decisions on tuition. So all of those options are open to international students and to domestic students.
Maybe I can just ask Bo just for a moment, though. There's a route through that Joe's talked about in general form, but Bo, you did an awful lot of work getting the Chinese side to sign up with an agreement with NREL and get a joint research project that lasted, I think you mentioned 6 or 7 years. And I just want to highlight that was something that you actually brought to the program. You brought those connections, and we were able to work on those connections. So maybe you could just, for a moment, because I think Israel's question is very important. If you're going to have an international program, you better have funding for students to do international work. So, Bo,
Yeah.
can you just,
Yeah, I guess a lot of times really depend upon the student bring the idea to the advisors and work together to get funding to support that work. I think this is from my experience, that's what happened. That's bring the money from NREL to support our research work, open a new area. That's normally is happening. And I think the university like UD can do that.
Yeah. And I think the laboratories we found were quite open to doing this stuff once you could show the team that could work on it. And Bo, so I think that's and you know, it had real impact. I mean, the lives and livelihoods of people in Mongolia, Qinghai, Xinjiang, where the studies were done, really transformed, and that film is indicative of that. So, yeah. So I want to add to what Joe Trainer is saying, and just suggest that there's also that process of interaction between what students know, what they are interested in, what, if any, connections they have with their faculty advisor, as Bo said, and try and explore the opportunity to get research, and it does work. So I think what Kathleen tried to describe with regard to the India case, that was not simply a 2-week study abroad. It branched into a whole body of work, and we got a couple of dissertations out of it and funding of various sorts in order to make it all come together. Some of which were what Joe said. I think, Kathleen, you had some travel grants and things to go as well. And
we have another question as well, JB, in the chat. Is what are the political, regulatory, and policy challenges that each of you have had at the international level while implementing projects?
Yeah.
So this is more a practitioner question.
Yeah.
So anyone, Johanna, especially maybe with your applied work?
Yeah, Johanna, I think you could. What are the opportunities and the pitfalls in trying to get the international work done?
Yeah, I mean, as a recovering political appointee at the local level, it's interesting to be a citizen and also to have had the experience of making policy. And it's quite easy to complain about everything that's going wrong, but when you're in the position of having to pull all the different stakeholders together to get policy passed, you become a little bit more empathetic about it. Let's see, what are the big challenges? I mean, we all know that one of the biggest challenges is political leadership. I mean, it's a huge challenge that politicians are elected every 4 years, and funding for grants usually lasts 1 to 2 years, and you have to show quantitative impacts during that time. Otherwise, you don't get the new grant or you don't get elected. And so that, I think, has been a huge challenge. I've been really gratified to see, JB, you mentioned, I think when you were introducing Joe, that, we'd love to see more political ambition or more ambition from the private sector. I have to say, in my experience, I've actually found a lot more leadership among private sector, leading private sector actors than I have among many politicians. And so I think that there's a trend in the direction of being being more ambitious, and also from those that are kind of where the money is coming from, that are funding the work, of being more patient about the real foundational transformational work that needs to happen. And that can't happen a year or two. It's about moving at the speed of trust and bringing everybody, listening to people and all of those things. And I think there are some really good challenges there that are starting to be overturned. But in my experience, we're just, we got 8 years to solve this thing. And that means we have this year and next year to solve this thing. And we're just not moving fast enough and ambitiously enough, in my opinion.
I would like to just add to what the colleagues just indicated. One area that I believe is underutilized, although I would say that the alumni that we talked about, they in various stages used this this route, which is to get to both the foundations and nonprofits. Try to make sure that your advisor is active in the field and can stand with you. But a lot of times, as what Johanna just said, if you work really closely to policy, it's what you can do in the next year, what you can do sometimes in the next 10 minutes. And it's a very important and rewarding strategy, but there's also a great deal of pressure on you to make things work and work quickly. Another route is to try and get at foundations, which we have found over the years have been willing to support graduate students who are working on ideas because they are creative ideas and don't yet have application in policy. The important thing is to show that the students and the faculty will work to make that happen. That is, eventually that connection will happen. But in the beginning, you need those kinds of grants to explore things. And we've done that. I know when we worked with things that Joe Nyangan was talking about, and when we worked with things that Kathleen was talking about, and as Bo pointed out, we did a lot of that in getting this work going in China, where we utilized foundations as well as governmental or other traditional sources of funding. So I just would suggest, especially to our international colleagues, we are better off looking toward foundations and conventional sources of research funding rather than conventional resources funding only. So.
And JB, if I could just maybe add one challenge which I would just like to highlight and maybe to put it into context. is that we are witnessing, profound shifts in every industry. And this is marked by emerging frontier technologies like AI, robotics, autonomous vehicles, as well as nanotechnology. And with the rapid pace of, triggered by the fourth industrial revolution, governments are being challenged to an unprecedented level, in terms of how they can improve on government relations, but also how to improve on partnership and collaborations between industry, civil society, as well as with the industry in a way that hasn't been done before, because I think we still have these kind of, 20th century, 19th century understanding of how these different entities should interact with each other. But technology is increasingly challenging these stakeholders to think differently in terms of how to address issues like climate change, issues like energy transition, because these are issues that are cross-industry, and you can't just focus on one specific industry and hope to have any enduring change. Today's political, legislative, as well as regulatory authorities are increasingly being overtaken by events. And as a result, they are unable to cope with the speed of technological change, and the significance of these implications are actually very alarming. So, and a good example is just the 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which the US Congress recently passed. And this is an example of how to unlock innovation. But ask yourself, why did it take Congress, US, all this long to come up with this policy which is cross-industry, but is also going to create significant jobs and also address issues to do with the boom and bust cycles that has become identified with the energy sector for a very long time. Because unlocking clean energy innovation requires investing in new technologies that can compete with conventional energy on both cost and quality. And this is something which has been lacking for quite a long time. So how governments, civil society and different stakeholders are going to work together while also recognizing that we are witnessing a lot of shifts in the industry, and how we can be able to put into context all these trends and use these trends in a way that can improve on decisioning, can improve on planning, can also improve on how we address issues to do with risk in the industry, be they climate risk, be they transition risk, be they infrastructure risk, and infrastructure, looking at it for more broadly, physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, as well as human infrastructure.
Yeah,
Thank you, Joe. We have a few more questions in the chat, so we'll try to multitask. Some of those questions can be addressed in the chat. Walker has also raised his hand. There's one specific question. Maybe first we'll ask this question of Carice, especially for you around from Meredith. Meredith, would you like to ask it on the plenary? You might be.
Carice?
Yes. Meredith.
Sure, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt it. I wasn't sure which way we were going, but I know some of you spoke about this a little bit, but I was just interested in hearing more about how you approached finding employment and figuring out exactly what you wanted to do with the degree and exploring that during your time as students.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I knew before coming into the program that I had a passion for the energy industry, but I was really interested in sustainability and in environmental issues and so forth. So I just needed something to provide me with the tools to be successful in that industry and to make the right step in the direction of sustainability and like clean energy and so forth. So I specifically found this program so that I can end up in this type of career. And while I was at school and I was like getting the experience, and I got a lot of experience from my research work. So doing that research with JB and Joe and Juhi, doing that research, I was able to get that experience in exactly what I wanted. And that helped me in applying for jobs because, I had very clear sense at that point from the experience of what field, I mean, I knew the field, but it helped me to really put down the, I'm sorry, I'm like blanking on the details, but it really helped me to narrow into like what job specifically. So like certain like keywords I would type in while searching for this job. And then, I found my current position, which is like, it literally, the description was finding ways to get people off of fossil fuels and getting them onto like cleaner energy in New York City. So I'm like, okay, yep, this is my job right here, So I think it really was the research that helped me, because I mentioned I did research with a different professor in my first year, and as great as it was, I realized, okay, maybe this is not the route of sustainability that I was interested in. And then from my classes, I was able to figure out something that felt a little bit more suited for me. And then that's when the opportunity came about with JB. So I would say, like, do the research, work with the professors. Like, one major benefit of this particular program is that it is so small. It's a very intimate experience. Like, you can speak to your professors, you can speak to PhD students, anyone, your TAs, very intimately, and they're very accessible. And like JB mentioned, everyone is really nice and friendly and willing to help. So you use those resources to your benefit. And, if you are interested in reaching out to me, if what I'm speaking about sounds interesting to you at all, like, by all means, reach out to me and we could discuss this further after this call.
That's wonderful, Carrie. It's very kind of you. You can write your emails there. Kathleen, there's a question specifically for you on French and teaching, but I want to first get to Walker because I think you can respond to that one on chat. Sorry, I'm just helping JB because
of course,
Zoom is a bit unwieldy. Walker, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, that I had the same question as Meredith did.
Okay, yours was answered. Okay, Kathleen, would you like to say something about teaching? Yes.
I just wanted to say, for all students looking for jobs, one thing that one of my master's advisors taught me to do, and is a lot easier now that because a lot of them are online, is attending conferences. And we can Zoom into conference sessions. The fees are often low for students. You can listen to people give talks. You can attend breakout sessions. It's a great way to network that I don't think students take advantage of enough. You don't have to give a paper to attend a conference. You can make posters and you can get a lot of interaction in poster sessions, because I've gone to poster sessions via Zoom. But they're great ways to get yourself known, but also to meet people. My first interactions with JB were at a conference in Washington, DC. So I think that is an underused source of information, because it's not just academics that go to conferences. There's a lot of great conferences out there that you can go to. Yeah, JB.
And I want to let Johanna, because she's actually put it into the chat, but Johanna, if you could verbalize your chat about how you went about looking for the positions that you got, because I think kind of thing with internships and things, it's really important. People sometimes.
I was pushy. I mean, if you're good and passionate and persistent, I went to the organizations, I knew I wanted to do nonprofit work. I went to the organizations that I really respected, and I just knocked on their doors, and they somehow gave me an internship. I remember my first internship, they said, well, we need someone that is willing to go to Guatemala for 3 months, and nobody's able to go. And I was like, what? I'll go. So I went. I mean, it's surprising. And I think right now is such a great market for job seekers. There are so many jobs available, especially in the clean energy space, especially for folks that are working on, I know there's a question about justice, environmental justice, energy justice, and centering equity and centering people in the work. There's just a ton out there. I'm happy to share all the job boards that we use to post our positions, but I put my email in the chat if folks want to talk about any of that.
Yeah. can I also mention one other thing that I actually did before getting this job? You know, I saw the position that I wanted for the company that I'm currently working for, and I knew that they worked with certain vendors and contractors. And I saw that one of their major contractors offered like free classes to help people learn about the energy industry. So I attended a few of those free classes online. And like I mentioned that I wanted to work for this company in this department. And, you know, like they kind of like put you on, they connect you in that way. So it wasn't necessarily a conference per se, but, you know, I did some background research and I reached out in that way as well. So, I mean, whatever it takes, you know, you really can't be shy about it when you need these employment opportunities to go your way.
That's what Johanna was saying too. So you know, just to recast, I mean, internships, online sessions that you can get involved in, research projects that you can then utilize to get your foot in the door. Carice was saying, the stuff that she did on community solar helped her to be able to get credibility in front of Con Ed folks. I think things like that are really important. If it's the job side that you're asking questions about, don't expect that the courses you've taken are going to deliver the slots that you are going to actually develop your professional life in. You're going to have to go beyond that and into these kinds of experiences. Kathleen's you know, turned a 2-week study tour in which we were asked to write a report on the flooding of the Narmada Dam, which was a very controversial, remains very controversial matter. And out of that report, I don't know how many contacts were made by our students, not simply Kathleen. There were a lot of people that benefited from what happened there. So getting involved not only in what you need to do, I'm not trying to, I hope Joe and the dean is not going to get mad. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do a whole lot of work on behalf of your courses and really perform extremely well and things like that, okay? But I think your research assistantships, internships, I'm just offering on this jobs thing that Meredith asked, when you're going to get out there and be able to tell people what you can do, you need to get that kind of credibility that is yours, that you own, and you can be, you know, in the spirit of both Johanna and Carice, you can be pushy. Tell them that I want this job. This is the one I'm looking for. Okay. And yeah, you give me Guatemala, I'm gone. Okay, no problem. So anyway.
That's great. And we have, you know, great networks at the Biden School. Yes. I don't know if the dean may want to comment on our recently established Ithaca initiative or the Biden Institute itself. And, you know, we're at a very good moment in history that way. And it might be even good also to give an update to the alumni on that. Maria, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Celine. So we do have wonderful new opportunities at the Biden School. We just received money from a foundation to fund a civil discourse initiative that not only brings us a named professor, but it brings us funding for students to work in this field. Nina and I just worked, by the way, on money for an ENEP student just last week. And it was really exciting to see these donors get so excited about students in this field and wanting to fund students and help students. So there are lots of possibilities going on. In terms of the Biden Institute, for the alums that may not be aware, when Biden joined the university and his papers came and so forth, with him came an institute that is chaired by his sister. His sister Valerie actually is the chair of the institute, and they have a fabulous executive director from Harvard who's bringing really good programming to the university. Next week, for example, there's one on housing, and they're bringing somebody from from the administration to talk about housing and these things, these kinds of opportunities happen all the time. Last week, I think we had the woman that was responsible for Juneteenth, and the week before we had Lauren Michaels. And if you're interested in any of the programming that's going on at the Byrne Institute, please go on their website and you can sign up for their events. Many of them are now via Zoom, which gives you the opportunity to come in from anywhere in the world. Thank you for that opportunity, Celine.
Thank you, Maria. That's great news. So any other questions? We also have a few of the other faculty who are here from the alumni may want to know. Dr. Andrea Pierce is with us, who also works on a range of issues around energy and the environment. And Dr. Kaleem Shah was here earlier, though he had to leave. He's set up the Island Policy Lab at the Biden School and also is working in this area. Dr. Casey Taylor is, I think, still with us or has had to leave, but I introduced her earlier as well. And yes, so we have about 10 minutes. So JB, any other questions you'd like to moderate through for the last round?
Well, I wanted to take Juhi's discussion on her own research topic that she's keenly interested in. And she's getting responses from Johanna and other members of the panel in the chat room. Again, I would strongly encourage that this kind of dialogue on the issues that you have. We are in a different world than we were before, and some is good and some is bad. But I just give you a small example. This morning, I had an early internet flight to Seoul, South Korea, to speak at a conference, and I flew out and came back. It was very fast. I didn't have to no baggage, nothing. All I had to do was get in front of but the point I'm trying to make is that there are an enormous number of connections that one can get that are online, as well as connections that can be gotten through, like Maria was saying, the kind of institutional presence. And like the alumni are saying, you can contact them and get things dealt with, everything from your research to I'm looking for a job. And I would just strongly encourage that you make sure you use all of those resources that we now have as a way to connect and then be able to find positions that are really the ones that you want, rather than trying to just sort of test the water and whoever's out there hiring and that kind of thing. I think there's especially in ENEP, I'm not going to speak about the other fields because I don't know them. But ENEP, I mean, the whole climate issue, this is a very vibrant policy topic. There are a lot of ways to get engaged, from the local to the international in this matter. And I would just urge you to take advantage. I don't think you need to settle in this kind of context. And I'll make one simple mention in this regard. So the Center for Energy and Environmental Policy is a member organization for the negotiations on climate change, and we issue briefing papers every year that becomes part of the official record of those conversations. In that process, you get people from places you can't imagine asking you questions and wanting to know about you, and you can do the same thing in reverse. So I'm just encouraging you to consider that making use of all the different tools you can now have to connect and ask and try and find out how you can get active on things is really, really important.
Absolutely. Any comments on energy justice further to, I think a lot of good responses, Juhi, to your question there. I can say as someone who works on environmental conflicts that energy justice is gaining a lot of attention, especially with reference to, there are two different areas. One is around energy poverty, where there isn't access for energy services in the developing world. But then on the other end is concern around the disproportionate impacts of energy generation in certain communities. Certainly with Indigenous people activism, energy justice has become a real rallying cry. And I work quite a bit on Indigenous environmental conflicts. So that's where I've had to grapple with that. But also we're talking about islands. That's an area also where having access to clean energy in islands is going to become increasingly important. So,
yeah, there's just a ton of topics, and I think just in the alumni, just the 5 that you had, we could do this every couple of months, you know, have new faces come in. There is just a ton of topics out there, and there are a ton of alumni that are active in these. So I obviously think very, very highly of Bo and Johanna and Joe and Carice and Kathleen, but I'm just telling you, there are so many of the alumni that are out there doing brilliant things, but you got to get connected. And so I would urge you to get involved on the research side, get involved on internships, get involved on talking with alumni, things of that kind.
We've also been very successful in terms of internships with the Environmental Defense Fund has a program of paid internships, which are remarkably well-paid internships every summer. And last, I think, 3 years, we have had at least 2 of our ENEP graduate students getting those internships.
Yeah. Joe, you get EDF?
Yes, I was actually the first one from our
first to get the EDFs.
And they really open doors for employment because you work directly. Joe, would you like to say something about the EDF internship?
Yeah, it's a very well organized program. When I joined it, I didn't know what to expect because there wasn't enough information in terms of, the program was initially targeting master's students, but they were not necessarily targeting a PhD student. So when I joined it, that is actually the program that enabled me to hone my skills in analytics, because I was paired with a company, a hotel actually. I was posted to Stamford in Connecticut to go and work with Starwood, which now owns Marriott Hotels. And I was to help them develop a dashboard for assessing energy efficiency, to improve on energy efficiency measures, and help them to automate their processes such that they are able to monitor energy efficiency across their portfolio. And it was very exciting just in the way the program was organized. You're paid, and there's a very rigorous program in terms of every week what you have to achieve. You are paired with an advisor that monitors your progress. So it's such a wonderful program, and it has a very rich alumni. They still send us emails. We keep contact with all the alumni of that program. And every year they invite us to evaluate the interns, who have been posted to help companies on their energy efficiency issues. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in this area, to apply to that program. But also SAS is actively recruiting. Juhi, you won't believe it, but we have a very well-developed department in energy justice. We do a lot of work in ethics and explainability of artificial intelligence issues, focusing on energy justice issues, environmental justice. So it's one way of getting into these programs is also through internship, which I really can't reinforce enough. Yeah. I participate in a lot of internships, during my master's and PhD program, and that enabled me to build a very rich network, and also branch out to areas, that haven't been traditionally open to us in terms of ENEP students. And that is one way in which you could be able to, because energy and environment is everything. It's all the industries. Think about it. You can work in every industry, be it in research, in teaching, in industry, and your skill that you are gaining in engineering, in economics, in policy is going to be very fundamental and helpful in terms of placing you in future.
Great. All right. So yeah, at one last point in terms of other areas that our alumni have gone into, one of our recent PhD alumni from last year, Robert de Damolura, he's got a job working with the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. So he's gone into environmental philanthropy. And, you know, he's actually managing a program in terms of how, you know, they provide funds, which it's a major Michigan-based philanthropic organization. So there's like finance efforts, philanthropy, a lot of interesting areas. So JB, 2 minutes to go for our completion. So over to you to wrap up.
Well, I want to first of all thank my alumni colleagues. This was, as I said, the easiest panel to put together in a long time for me, and it didn't take much, a couple of phone calls, and we got enthusiastic cooperation. So I'm really grateful to Bo and to Johanna and Joe and Chris and Kathleen. So I want to say that. I'm also very pleased to see the diversity of interests and ideas and translating those into among the students. I think that's very encouraging for the future of the program. So I'm really very happy to see that. And of course, I'm happy to see faculty coming and getting involved. We're going to need more faculty. I know that's not necessarily what any dean, I'm not trying to pick it on Maria. This is not the best time to ask a dean to go get you 3 faculty positions, but this is a very vibrant field. And I take my hat off to the geography department for getting the social dimensions of climate change. That's really important, and can't wait to see that process, that interview process go on. So I'm glad to see faculty, students try with alumni and other networks to get into that world that goes beyond the classroom. I think that's what I hear is the message from all of my colleagues, all the alumni colleagues. I think that's the message for our current crop of students. If you want to get really situated well and do what you want to do in this field, I think it's that you've got to build that multidimensional portfolio of you. And if you do it and do it well, we'll be inviting you back in a couple of years, and you can be the next generation of alumni that can come and counsel and encourage and nourish students in the program. So thank you all very much. Salim, always wonderful working with you.
Pleasure.
Looking forward to learning more about Nina.
Yep. Thank you to everyone. Thanks, Nina, for joining on sabbatical, especially taking the time out of your sabbatical. All the best. We'll be in touch. The recording will be available, and I'll put it on our YouTube channel. So for future students as well. All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.